The story begins by showing 300,000 troops from the northern tribal kingdom preparing to attack the border city belonging to the Sichuan kingdom. There, General Gusha, leading the northern tribal kingdom's forces, orders the first team to launch the attack. Not long after, arrows are released to signal and command the frontline troops to prepare for the assault. At that moment, it is clear that the Sichuan kingdom's facing difficulty in confronting the enemy with only 50,000 troops. Shortly after, a young man named Shio, who is a general from the Sichuan kingdom, suddenly emerges from the ground where he had been hiding. Shio possesses extraordinary powers beyond human comprehension and swiftly eliminates General Gusha of the northern tribal kingdom. Not only that, Shio also switches the enemy's arrows to signal the northern tribal kingdom's forces to retreat from the battlefield. Upon seeing this signal, the northern tribal kingdom's forces promptly withdraw. At that moment, the Sichuan kingdom's troops find it strange to see the enemy suddenly retreating. Then, a deputy general named Bai Chuan immediately goes to the base camp to awaken their general, who has been hiding in bed since the start of the battle. It turns out Shio feigns incompetence and portrays himself as a very weak general so that his troops do not realize that Shio possesses extraordinary powers. After that, Bai Chuan reports to the northern tribal kingdom that the sudden retreat from the battlefield led to their victory in the war. At that moment, Shio merely smiles, feeling relieved that the war has finally ended, but Bai Chuan is deeply upset by the behavior of his general, whom she considers very weak and useless. Sometime later, Shio inspects the casualties from the enemy side, and it turns out that Shio has captured the princess of the northern tribal kingdom named Kadan. At that moment, the troops request to kill Kadan, but Shio immediately embraces her and takes Kadan to the base camp to prevent her from being killed. Meanwhile, in the capital of the Sichuan kingdom, news of Shio winning the war has already spread, although with the northern tribal kingdom's forces numbering 300,000 troops. It seems impossible for him to win. On the other hand, a defense minister of the Sichuan kingdom named Mr. Yang Minghua still cannot accept Shio's victory. Mr. Yang then instructs his subordinate named Luo to investigate what actually happened at the border city, suspecting that Shio may have colluded with the northern tribal kingdom. If this is true, then Shio is a traitor. At the same time, Bai Chuan and her troops begin to contemplate and still cannot believe they could win the war. Bai Chuan even suspected that there was something their general, Shio, had done secretly, and she also harbors suspicion that Shio may be collaborating with the enemy kingdom and acting as a traitor. Not long after, Shio gathers all the belongings of the northern tribal kingdom's troops that they have seized and puts them into a box. He also puts General Gusha's skin, the leader of the northern tribe who Shio killed, into the box. Nobody there knows it's human skin. Then, the box is sent to Shio's mentor, Ing Xing, to show their success. When Ing Xing receives the box, he's shocked to find human skin with a tattoo, realizing that Shio killed General Gusha. Meanwhile, Mr. Yang, the defense minister of the Sichuan kingdom, meets with the king, Mr. Jun. It's revealed that the former king died in a battle, and during his reign, he had taken in a child named Shio, who now protects the border city. Now that the previous king has passed away, Mr. Jun, who is the late king's biological brother, becomes the new king. Despite being king, it's clear that Mr. Yang doesn't show any respect to Mr. Jun, which earns him a sharp reprimand from Mr. Jun's personal guard, Suyin. As a punishment, Mr. Yang's sword is taken away for a week and will be returned later. In that moment, Mr. Yang can't do anything and simply smiles as he hands over his sword and leaves. Later on, as Mr. Jun feels deeply annoyed by Mr. Yang's behavior, he realized that Mr. Yang plans to rebel and take over the throne of the Sichuan kingdom. Meanwhile, at the city border, Shio receives a letter from Mr. Yang instructing him to return to the capital to report the results of the battle. Upon hearing this, Shio immediately recalls the events from 7 years ago when he was sentenced to death by Mr. Yang for causing the death of the previous king in battle. However, at that time, Shio had fought desperately to protect the king, but he was falsely accused by Mr. Yang of incompetence in safeguarding the king. The death sentence was later revoked, considering Shio was the adopted child of the king, and Shio was sent to the border city. On the other hand, Mr. Yang and his soldiers are making swords every day for a mysterious reason, with Mr. Yang's devoted soldiers, who are cared for like children, are led by someone named Lin. Later, Lin learns that Shio will soon come back to the capital. Holding a grudge against Shio, Lin plans to kill him, but Mr. Yang intervenes. Instead, He calls Shio back to the capital to look into his seemingly unbelievable triumph over the Northern Tribal Kingdom's army. Sometime later, Shio, accompanied by Bai Chuan, comes back to the capital. Shio makes a stop at a brothel to talk to the owner and get updates about what's happening in the capital. Unexpectedly, Lin and his soldiers capture Shio before he can meet Mr. Yang, accusing him of returning without seeing Mr. Yang first. Later, they both go into a room where they pretend to be enemies, although they're actually friends. While Lin keeps up the act of fighting, Shio sits down to eat. Shortly after, Lin gets angry and asks why Shio came back to the capital, knowing that Mr. Yang wants to harm him, saying it's like seeking death. Upon hearing this, Shio replies that he returned to claim his reward for defeating the Northern Tribal Kingdom, especially since it's been 7 years since he last came back. After that, Shio is taken and put in prison, where a secret passage is prepared for them to meet. Additionally, Suyin turns out to be Shio's friend, and the three of them are like siblings, even though they're not related by blood. After not seeing each other for 7 years, Shio is very happy to see them safe. The next day, Lin was having a meal with Mr. Yang, where Luo continued to urge Mr. Yang to bring Shio to trial on charges of colluding with the Northern Tribal Kingdom, as it was impossible for Shio to win in battle, and with those accusations, they could kill Shio. At the same time, Lin, who listening to this, could only remain silent without opposing. The following day, Lin met Suyin privately and discussed the issue of Mr. Yang intending to kill Shio on charges of colluding with the Northern Tribal Kingdom, because they don't believe in Shio's victory in repelling the Northern Tribal Kingdom's forces in battle. As friends, they need to come up with a plan to prove Shio's innocence. But they have to keep their distance to avoid suspicion. Not long after, Mr. Yang ordered Luo to bring Shio from prison and have him killed right away. Quickly, the soldiers led by Luo went to the prison and brought Shio out, saying that the king wanted to see him. As they walked, Shio started to realize they weren't heading to the king's place, especially since the soldiers didn't look like prison guards. When the soldiers found out, they attacked him. But even with his hands tied, Shio managed to defeat them all easily. Then, he jumped into a nearby carriage to flee. Surprisingly, inside the carriage, he met Princess Ning of the Sichuan Kingdom, who was the daughter of the former king. At that time, Ning disguised herself as a man to run away because she heard that Shio had come back to the capital. Then, she quickly brought him to her place to help with his wounds. It turns out that Ning and Shio have been friends since they were kids, and Ning has missed him a lot over the years. Also, Shio is the man Ning deeply loves. Soon after, Shio secretly meets with Lin. During their meetings, Shio enjoys teasing Lin's wife, which often bothers Lin. After that, the three siblings gather to plan their next move. They all know that Mr. Yang is getting ready to rebel and take over the Sichuan Kingdom's throne. The main problem now is that the soldiers who tried to kill Shio were under Mr. Yang's command. Since they failed to kill Shio, he might face another trial and be accused once more of working with the Northern Tribal Kingdom. Before that could occur, Lin and Suyin plan to get Shio out of the capital. However, Shio refuses, wanting to prove his innocence. Unexpectedly, he collapses from being poisoned by them. To ensure his safety, he's sent out of the capital on horseback. Meanwhile, Mr. Yang received a report that the troops he sent to kill Shio had failed. To avoid suspicion, he immediately ordered those troops to leave the capital. Afterward, Mr. Yang dispatched one of his best troops to kill Shio tonight. Then, he met with Mr. Shao, the Minister of Justice, and told him to make up charges that Shio colluded with the Northern Tribal Kingdom and call him a traitor. Mr. Yang planned to present Shio's body in court the next day, and if successful, nothing would stop his rebellion. Upon hearing this, Mr. Shao agreed to carry out his orders. The following day came, and Mr. Shao, as the Minister of Justice, called Shio for questioning, and the interrogation began. Luo then offered fake proof that Shio was a traitor, claiming he worked with the enemy kingdom to win battles and harm the Sichuan Kingdom from within. Luo also showed Shio's supposed dead body, which he claimed to have burned after revealing Shio as a traitor. However, Suyin didn't believe that the body was Shio's. Unexpectedly, Shio showed up in court and laughed at the idea that the body could be his, as he was alive and standing there in front of everyone. Then, Mr. Shao quickly sentenced one of the soldiers who spread the false rumor of Shio's death to death himself. It seems Mr. Shao did this on purpose to uphold his reputation as the Minister of Justice. At that moment, Luo claimed that during the war with the Northern Tribal Kingdom, Shio was hiding in the base camp. How could Shio have fought off 300,000 troops from the Northern Tribal Kingdom? Also, Shio didn't report capturing the Northern Tribal Kingdom's princess, Kadan. Because of this, Shio was suspected of working with the current enemy. Upon hearing all this, Shio laughed at Mr. Shao and Luo for trying to frame him. Shortly after, Suyin spoke up, saying if they wanted to punish Shio as a traitor, they needed evidence because Suyin hadn't seen any evidence from Mr. Shao and Luo to prove Shio was a traitor. Shortly after, Mr. Shao called Bai Chuan and pressured her to confess. At that moment, Bai Chuan admitted that Shio was at the base camp during the war but insisted he wasn't a traitor. She explained that the weather at the border town was extremely cold, making it hard to even walk, let alone travel to the distant Northern Tribal Kingdom. Bai Chuan said that Shio couldn't have done it, especially since she had always been with him. However, Mr. Shao refused to believe Bai Chuan's statement. Consequently, Bai Chuan was sentenced to death for giving false statements and supporting Shio's alleged treason. Upon hearing this, Shio immediately threatened anyone who dared to harm Bai Chuan, stating he would kill them. Then, Shio expressed his anger towards Mr. Shao for accusing him without evidence, especially when he had been bravely fighting against the enemy forces at the border town. Shio felt confused by the false accusations, thinking he should have been praised for his victory in battle. But because of his resistance, Mr. Shao decided to sentence both Shio and Bai Chuan to death. Shortly after, Mr. Jun arrived with Ning to stop the argument. As the king, he stated he wouldn't take sides and wanted to stay neutral. However, before Shio was sentenced to death, Mr. Jun wanted to have a final meal with him since Shio was the late king's adopted son. The king's arrival forced Mr. Shao to reluctantly agree. After that, Suyin informed Lin of the trial's outcome, indicating that Mr. Shao had worked with Mr. Yang to condemn Shio to death. So, they needed to act before Shio was executed. In prison, Ning continued to cry over Shio's impending execution. She urged him to escape before it was too late, but Shio remained calm, knowing he wouldn't die so easily. Shio then asked Mr. Jun, his adopted uncle, to take Ning away from the prison. Sometime later, execution day arrived, whereby Chuan looked fearful, but Shio appeared calm, even laughing. At the same time, Suyin and Lin, along with their troops, were positioned above, ready to attack as the executioner prepared to kill Shio. Meanwhile, Mr. Yang heard the war trumpet announcing Ing Xing's return to the capital. Mr. Yang understood that his plan to execute Shio would probably not succeed. And indeed, just as the executioner was about to act, Ing Xing's soldiers arrived and prevented it. If the executioner continued, Ing Xing's soldiers would intervene and attack. Not long after, Ing Xing visited Mr. Yang at his home. Ing Xing was the commander at the border town and Shio's mentor. He came to prevent Shio's execution by the Minister of Justice. Ing Xing also said that Shio wasn't a traitor and confirmed that Shio was helped by King Ming, who defeated General Gusha. As a result, the Northern Tribal Kingdom withdrew right away. Upon hearing this, Mr. Yang was shocked because King Ming was considered the greatest warrior ever, and no one had ever seen him in person. So, everyone thought of King Ming as a legendary figure. Then, Ing Xing showed General Gusha's neck skin with a tattoo, proving Shio wasn't a traitor. Upon seeing this, Mr. Yang couldn't do anything, and he instructed the Minister of Justice to drop the charges against Shio. Shortly after, Shio was taken home by Ning, who intended to show him his long-unused room. Just as they were about to enter, one of the soldiers called out, prompting Shio to leave immediately, leaving Ning angry by his departure. It turned out Shio was summoned by Ing Xing, who instructed him to return to the border town. At that moment, Shio refused, insisting on remaining in the capital, knowing Mr. Yang planned a rebellion there, and Shio wouldn't stand idly by. Nevertheless, they accepted their roles with Shio would remain in the capital to watch Mr. Yang's actions, while his mentor would negotiate with envoys from the Northern Tribal Kingdom. After all, Kadan, the princess of the Northern Tribal Kingdom, was their captive. Therefore, Ing Xing aimed to establish peace between the two kingdoms. The following day, Ning invited Shio to make music together and reminisced about their childhood, showing him a dried leaf that Shio used to make music with while Ning played the zither. Suddenly, Shio wanted to leave and suggested they only play music together on their birthdays. Ning felt a bit let down, but she tried to understand Shio's actions. It appeared that Shio went to the late king's altar, his foster father, to show respect. Shio's ongoing distance from Ning wasn't because he didn't care for her, but because there were still many problems and conflicts he needed to sort out. At that time, Shio didn't want Ning to be part of those issues, fearing she might get hurt. Meanwhile, in the palace, Mr. Jun gathered all the ministers for a meeting. Essentially, Xing intended to offer Kadan, the princess of the Northern Tribal Kingdom, as a peace gesture. Xing wanted both kingdoms to reconcile and stop fighting, but some ministers disagreed, preferring to keep fighting. Upon hearing this, Xing spoke up, stressing that the border town was full of people who wanted peace and calmness. Continuing the war would only lead to innocent civilians getting hurt. Besides, the border town was facing a shortage of food. Using Kadan, the currently captured princess, as a negotiation tool could bring about peace. Only then could the border town's residents live peacefully and safely, no longer suffering from the effects of war. Suddenly, the king felt stomach pain and wanted to leave, but Mr. Yang suddenly exclaimed his agreement with Xing's decision, emphasizing the importance of prioritizing the welfare of the people in the border town. It turned out Mr. Yang supported the peace efforts of Xing because he had a plan to disrupt the peace, blaming Xing, thus ensuring the continuation of the war between the two kingdoms. Meanwhile, Xing and the king were conversing, discussing Mr. Yang's rebellion. They both knew that Mr. Yang was only pretending to agree to peace and surely had a plan to sabotage it. Xing then assured the king to remain calm, as he would create peace between the two kingdoms. After their success, Xing would help the king confront Mr. Yang. After that, they gathered again, where Lin disclosed a crucial secret, where Mr. Yang planned to rebel in 15 days and already had control over 170,000 troops of the Sichuan kingdom secretly. Hearing this, Shio understood that Mr. Yang would rebel on Ning's 18th birthday, which was in 15 days. So, the three of them started planning a mission. The following day, Shio was given a job as a deputy supervisor. The leader of the supervisory team there was named Gassen, who was very picky about who worked under them. Gassen told Shio to take a bath and change clothes because his clothes smelled strongly of alcohol. Meanwhile, Kadan and the soldiers from the Northern Kingdom were now imprisoned. At that time, Kadan asked the prison guard to call a doctor because one of her soldiers was badly hurt. However, the guard refused and insulted Kadan as a prisoner. Even though she humbly asked for help as a royal princess, the guard didn't care. So, Kadan borrowed a knife and heated it to stop her soldiers bleeding. Shortly after, Suin approached the prison guard, reprimanding him for his behavior. After that, Suin instructed all the guards to bring the wounded enemy soldiers for treatment. Not long after, an envoy named Mu Qi from the Northern Kingdom arrived. At that moment, Xing asked the Northern Kingdom not to attack the border town anymore. Initially, Mu Qi disagreed because they wanted to capture the border town and include it in the Northern Kingdom. However, when Xing mentioned that if Mu Qi disagreed, then the princess of the Northern Kingdom, who was currently held captive, wouldn't be released, Mu Qi became quiet. Then Mu Qi asked for time because soon the general of the Northern Kingdom would arrive, and Mu Qi needed to consult with him first. Sometime later, the awaited general named Lu Di arrived. It turns out, Lu Di was late because he got lost on the way to the Sichuan Kingdom's capital. Upon arriving, Lu Di immediately caused trouble by challenging Xing to a fight. If Lu Di lost, he would agree to whatever Xing wanted. Just as the fight was about to start, Xing tricked Shio into fighting in his place. Moreover, Xing purposely insulted Lu Di, saying he wasn't good enough to fight Shio. Upon hearing this, Lu Di got angry and challenged Shio to fight him. Since he was already trapped by his own teacher, Shio couldn't refuse. The fight was straightforward. Whoever could hit the opponent's drum first would win. During the fight, Shio clearly had the upper hand. However, Shio seemed not to take it seriously, even deliberately provoking Lu Di, causing him to attack recklessly. In the end, Lu Di destroyed his own drum, resulting in his defeat. Soon after, the meeting continued. At that moment, Lu Di stated that the Northern Kingdom was ready to make peace and wouldn't attack the border town anymore. However, he had one condition. Lu Di wanted to see their princess return safely. Upon hearing this, Xing said that the next day, he would return their princess, and the day after that, both the Sichuan Kingdom and the Northern Kingdom had to sign a peace treaty. At the same time, Luo informed that the Northern Kingdom agreed to peace, and Princess Kadan would be returned the next day. Upon hearing this, Mr. Yang came up with an idea, to assassinate the princess. If Kadan died, it would disrupt the peace agreement, leading to war again, with the Northern Kingdom blaming Xing for the problem. Meanwhile, Shio was approached by Xing, who knew that Mr. Yang surely wanted to sabotage this peace deal. Therefore, Shio was asked to ensure the safety of Princess Kadan, as the success of this peace deal involved the future of their border town. After that, Shio met Suyin and requested him to protect Princess Kadan, as this task suited him, especially since Xing had instructed him. After hearing this, Suyin agreed to follow through with the plan, and they went to Kadan in prison. Temporarily, Kadan would be brought to Su Yin's house to stay safe. Until the next day, Kadan would be sent back to the Northern Kingdom as part of the peace deal. Kadan then used Shio's clothes to trick the prison guard, while Suyin then escorted her away, and Shio took Kadan's place in prison. When they got to Su Yin's house, he set up a special room for Kadan and gave her a bell. If Kadan needed help, she just had to ring the bell, and nobody should know where she was. While looking out the window, Kadan accidentally saw a feather decoration on one of the lanterns. On the other hand, Bai Chuan came to the prison under the pretext of bringing food for Kadan. After entering, it turned out Shio deliberately summoned her to pretend to be Kadan. Returning to Su Yin, he was extremely shocked to find that Kadan was not in the room. It appeared that Kadan had secretly met with her troops from the Northern Kingdom, and the feather ornament was a signal from her eldest brother. The soldiers informed Su Yin that Kadan would be escorted to meet with Mu Qi, who was already waiting along with General Lu Di. Inside the horse-drawn carriage, Kadan inquired about her father and eldest brother. The two soldiers assured her that the king and prince were well. Meanwhile, Su Yin was informed by the gatekeeper that a horse-drawn carriage had recently passed through. Upon hearing this, Su Yin hurriedly set out to pursue them. Not long after, Kadan started to understand that she was being escorted away from the capital of the Sichuan kingdom, while Mu Qi and General Lu Di remained there. Kadan suspected that these two soldiers planned to harm her. Eventually, the soldiers admitted that they were instructed by Kadan's eldest brother, the prince, to kill her because he wanted to disrupt the peace by sacrificing her life. At that moment, Kadan was speechless, unable to understand her eldest brother's cruelty toward her. She asked for a knife, ready to do the unthinkable if her life was truly deemed necessary for the Northern Kingdom. After that, the soldiers provided her with a knife. Luckily, Su Yin arrived just in time to rescue her. However, another group of soldiers suddenly appeared to attack, where Su Yin bravely shielded Kadan from the arrows and swiftly escorted her away. The next day, Shio searched for Su Yin's whereabouts, but one of the servants said that Su Yin went to look for Kadan, who disappeared last night and had not returned yet. Meanwhile, Su Yin and Kadan entered a cave and hid there temporarily. Su Yin then immediately took off his robe and gave it to Kadan, who was feeling cold, and then Su Yin carried her. At that time, the care given by Su Yin immediately touched Kadan, and from there the seeds of love between them began to grow. Sometime later, the meeting resumed, where Mu Qi and Lu Di were already waiting, but Princess Kadan had not yet appeared. Then Shio came there and invited his mentor to leave for a moment. Then, Shio recounted all the current problems. Upon hearing the news, Xing grew anxious, fearing for Kadan's safety. In a moment of urgency, Shio revealed the ornament. After recognizing it, Xing realized the Northern Kingdom had abducted Kadan to disrupt peace. Reluctantly, Shio was tasked to disguise himself as Kadan to avoid suspicion while awaiting updates from Su Yin. Later, Xing returned, announcing Kadan's imminent arrival. Upon hearing this, Lu Di promptly departed, while Mu Qi, also intending to leave, was briefly detained by Xing for a conversation. Shortly after, it was reported that Princess Kadan was unwell. However, Lu Di, wanting to check on her, was stopped by Xing due to the contagious nature of the illness. Though unclear what Xing and Mu Qi discussed earlier, suddenly Mu Qi also prevented Lu Di from approaching the carriage. When Lu Di approached and peered inside, he discovered Shio disguised as Kadan. Surprisingly, Mu Qi agreed that Kadan was afflicted by a contagious illness and needed rest before returning home. This strange behavior raised Lu Di's suspicion, prompting him to order his men to investigate who was inside the carriage. The scene then showing a flashback, it was revealed that Xing had been informed about Princess Kadan's disappearance the previous night. He then asked Mu Qi to cooperate, promising that they would find Princess Kadan within a day. On the other hand, Lu Di turned out to be an agent of the Prince of the Northern Kingdom who ordered him to kill Kadan to sabotage the peace between the two kingdoms. From the beginning, Lu Di knew it wasn't Kadan in the carriage. Meanwhile, the soldiers from the previous night kept searching for Su-in and Kadan. It was revealed that these soldiers were actually sent by Mr. Yang. It was known from the beginning that Lu Di had the mission to kill Kadan, as their intentions aligned in disrupting the peace between the two kingdoms. Afterwards, Mr. Yang summoned Shio, and essentially, he wanted Shio to stay at his place for a day. Mr. Yang suspected that Shio might be planning to search for Princess Kadan, so he asked Shio to assist him in painting a picture since Shio was known for his painting skills. Lin was then directed to accompany Shio during this task. While in a room together, Lin and Shio discussed the issue of Princess Kadan, who was missing. Su-in had gone to search for her, but hadn't returned yet. Meanwhile, Su-in and Kadan were still in hiding, where Kadan was asked to rest while Su-in kept watch. Suddenly, Su-in fainted while on guard. At the same time, Shio managed to escape from Mr. Yang's residence and started searching for Kadan. Meanwhile, Lin pretended to guard Shio, who was still painting, but soon realized that one of Mr. Yang's men was watching his movements from outside. Moral lesson from the story: if you're going to hide someone in a carriage, make sure it's the right princess, or you'll end up with a painting of chaos instead of peace. But remember, if you borrow someone's clothes, make sure you don't end up in someone else's troubles.